This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From beautiful design templates and custom domains to full-blown e-commerce, email campaigns, and powerful analytics that you can set up in minutes, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and yes, we just finished binge watching Star Trek Picard. Engage. Anyway. Today, I don't want to explode the myths or reveal the horrible truth about Instagram. I'm not interested in giving you tips on how to use Instagram as a marketing tool per se. That's because I think I know you, at least to the extent you're like me. I think you love the art and craft of photography, maybe the gear too, just possibly. I think you might have resisted Instagram because you think it's a time suck filled with trolls. Or maybe you've given it a try in an attempt to grow your business and found the ROI just isn't there. And it's a time suck and filled with trolls. But what I want to share with you is this. The real value of Instagram for the majority of photographers isn't ROI. The real value of Instagram is one, it can make you a better photographer, and two, quite possibly it can create opportunities for you to be a happier person. Your faith in humanity and yourself reaffirmed. Furthermore, Instagram needn't be a time suck, nor a place to subject yourself to people who add nothing to the quality of your life. Let's start with the assertion that Instagram can help you become a better photographer. First, I think what is most extraordinary about Instagram is that it completes the round trip in digital workflow, so that suddenly you have an extraordinary feedback loop simply not possible in the old analog days of film. From capture through curation, editing, and publishing, the latency is almost zero. You can do it in minutes. Hold that thought. The cost of shooting and editing is basically zero, except for the value of your time. You've already paid for your gear, your phone, your monthly cell phone bill, or internet fees, and whatever editing tools you use. This means you can shoot and edit and curate and post without racking up additional expenses. This is incredibly liberating and powerful. Hold that thought. The feedback Instagram affords you as a photographer is essentially instantaneous and free in the forms of like and comments, or lack thereof, and bilateral. Not only do you receive feedback, but you are free to give feedback. You have the opportunity to contribute to a creative community and grow in the process. Or, at the very least, evaluate other people's work and gauge your own efforts against theirs. What we've learned and show in our workshops is how properly, supportively framed critique of other people's work is not only a generous giving thing, but can have the salutary effect of making it easier to critique one's own work and accept the input of others. In other words, become a better photographer and a better human being. A little bit, anyway. I want to pause here for a moment to let the power of this digital feedback loop sink in. You become a better photographer because you shoot dramatically more images, you edit dramatically faster and better, you cull your images at impossible speeds against a vastly more complete set of standards, and you have a universe of like-minded people to either nudge you in a different direction or strengthen your resolve. Your artistic voice and vision, if you take advantage of this, can mature at a speed and richness simply unfathomable a couple of decades ago. You happen upon a scene, say on, the streets of New York. You quickly frame up, fine-tune the focus if the camera doesn't do it or do it well enough for you, fine-tune the exposure if the camera doesn't do it for you or well enough for you, and fire off a couple of shots before whatever it is that drew your eye, that moment, that confluence of light, shape, color, geometry, meaning, movement, juxtaposition, irony, humor, paradox, pathos, is gone forever. Seconds later, you're reviewing it on your camera's rear screen. Less than a minute after that, if you wish, you've transferred the image to your smartphone if you haven't already shot it on your smartphone. The totality of your life's experiences to the point at which you trip the shutter are now focused on a screen much larger and brighter than what you have on your camera, integrated with a wirelessly connected computer vastly more powerful than the room full of computers that first put man on the moon. With a distance of just a minute or two, you might decide, say, that the framing was slightly off, the angle suboptimal, or an errant face all but ruined the shot. You might have the time to reshoot. You might conclude your initial instinct was wrong altogether. There was no shot, and simply move on. In either case, you've just learned something, even if only subconsciously, and it has already been incorporated into who you are and what and how you will see and do next time. But let's suppose you like the image enough to work with it. Sure, you could wait until you're home in front of your 27-inch or 32-inch monitor with Lightroom, Photoshop, Capture One, Luminar, Affinity, or who knows what other tool you prefer. But maybe you decide this is as good a time as any to take a break, a latte calling you from across the street, or maybe your dog's just hurt and you want to take a load off and find the nearest park bench. If you so choose, you can open up Instagram right then and there. You can start working with a surprisingly rich set of tools inside the app itself, from filters to perspective correction, light, color, definition, and selective focus. With your index finger and thumb, you can create half a dozen very different final images, looks, in half as many minutes before settling on the one you want to share. With another stroke and a tap or two on the share button, you've braved the scorn of the world to post something original. Maybe the likes pile up, or maybe they don't. Maybe you've just created the account. Maybe you haven't learned about tagging people, adding locations, or using hashtags so that people will find your work. Maybe you haven't liked anybody else's work or posted a genuine attaboy to anyone else. Maybe you forgot to make your account public. Maybe you just haven't yet found your tribe. Or maybe you hover over that share button and then conclude it really isn't good enough and delete it instead. That's awesome. Seriously, you've just learned how much more you need to learn, how much more clarity around intent and process will help. More, how much you need to overcome your fear or perfectionist tendencies. You can always delete a post. More importantly, most likely, you've just employed the power to curate your own images. I cannot begin to tell you how important it is to cull through a sea of images to find the few that are truly worthy of your talent, truly reflect your voice and vision. Then again, you might have turned away from your viewfinder just as the real shot unfolded. Still awesome. You've just learned something else. There is value in remaining in the moment. Although now, you have the rest of the day, maybe the last 15 minutes of the golden hour, the evening, or tomorrow to apply those lessons. As you wind down for the evening, Instagram is there for you too, if you want it. The existence and persistence of your imagery on public display, like everyone else's, are never more than a flick of the wrist and a swipe or two away, practically demanding more mindshare from you. The more you think about things, the more you see things. Before we continue, I want to give a quick shout out to the outstanding team behind Squarespace.com. Bring your photography, your eye, your voice to the people you really want to reach using Squarespace.com's elegant layouts, click, drag, and drop interface, and customization tools. Squarespace.com can literally have you up and running in minutes with a beautiful site and custom URL tailored to the way you want to present yourself. Instantly leverage the exceptional design support and operational teams, all of whom understand what it takes to build your identity and grow your business. When you're ready to move beyond a web presence to e-commerce, email campaigns, analytics, even appointment settings, Squarespace.com has you covered. So hop over to squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial and get an extra 10% off your first website or domain when you're ready to really give it a go by using the discount code Hugh. Again, that's squarespace.com/Hugh. And I want to thank the good folks at Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of Three Blind Men and an Elephant. Beyond your photographs on Instagram, your friends' photographs on Instagram, or some random person's photo that just somehow happens to pop up in your feed, Instagram is also an incredible educational resource, once again, instantly accessible at zero cost. Elbow stop clicking. I'm not only talking about the access to the extraordinarily extended long tail of images shot by the greats, both living, like Elliot Erwitt and Martin Parr, and legacy, like Foundation Cartier-Bresson, heck, much, if not all, of the catalogs of the likes of Magnum, ICP, MoMA, Photographiska, and individuals like Herb Ritz, Peter Lindbergh, and more, but also to new stars like Alan Schaller or my dear friend Sean Tucker. Or access to the oeuvre of photographs who have not yet achieved that level of star status, but are nonetheless worthy. Instagram provides an essentially limitless smorgasbord of images which cannot help but refine one's sensibility, ignite one's curiosity, and inspire one's creativity. Forget about Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. With a few clicks, Instagram allows you to see the world as other people see it in seconds. By contrast, no pun intended, back in the days of analog photography, you'd compose an image, take the shot, and unless you were either an amateur shooting with a consumer Polaroid camera or professional using a Polaroid back, you'd have to wait. Days or weeks, not seconds or minutes. You wouldn't see the image until the film was developed, but then it was usually a negative. You wouldn't see a positive image until it was printed, unless, of course, you were shooting with the aforementioned Polaroid film, or actually slide film. For ordinary negative films like Tri-X or Ectacolor, there'd typically be a contact sheet first, a magnifying loupe to decide which images to print, and then at some point later, a series of test prints before settling on the one image that achieved your original vision, multiple dodging and burning sessions quite likely along the way. The chemicals you'd used would simply go down the drain and eventually into our waterways. No bueno, but by and large, you are no longer part of that particular problem. See, you're better already. That film, those chemicals, and that paper were all additional costs too, essentially every single time you went out to shoot. Like I just said, turnaround time typically measured in days, sometimes weeks. Whether you did the work yourself or simply dropped off your film at the local camera store or pharmacy. I hated doing that. The disincentives, in other words, to shoot a lot, make a lot of mistakes, and grow from the process were prohibitive. In the meantime, you might go to your local library to borrow a photography book, or pop around the corner to the local newsagent to pick up one of the photo magazines. This would take time and or money too. A couple of times a year, if you were fortunate to live close enough or were able to travel, there were and remain to this day the great museums and galleries. But more time and money. If once the prints arrived, they didn't quickly end up in a shoebox in a closet, maybe find their way into an occasional album, or in the case of slides, a too rarely used carousel slide tray, a couple of them might eventually end up as prints hung on a wall that you'd more than likely pass by innumerable times a day without glancing at them at all. So, what about that better, happier person thing? Well, you just might find, like I said, your tribe. People who enjoy your work. People who come to enjoy you. As you might come to enjoy their work. Them. People who see and experience the world, art, life, politics, sports, movies, whatever, much as you do. And yet, who may also see those things in some shade of different. See other things altogether, know other things, believe different things, as invariably you would as well, which lead to a richer, kinder existence for everyone. And from this, all kinds of things can happen, have happened in our experience. Kindred spirits may become supporters. Supporters may become friends. Friends may become dear friends we know. These relationships can be as virtual as pen pals of yore who never meet, beginning as comments beneath an image or a direct message, evolving to emails, maybe even phone calls. Or maybe they become completely old school RL, real life. Finally greeting each other in person for the first time as far as an ocean away, already friends. Been there, done that. Amazo. And we have learned recently that in times of grief, no matter what the label, no matter how deep or superficial the relationship with various members of your tribe may be, you may find that tribe suddenly becomes a wave of heartfelt support from around the globe that lifts you up. We are grateful for that. We are grateful to you. What about trolls, you ask? Well, the whole troll thing is pretty straightforward to navigate. I think of it this way. Our presence on social media is an open invitation into our home. All are welcome. But just like a real home, if the first thing a person does when entering it is to take a on our foyer floor, they are gone, not a moment's further thought. All of which, as I wrap this up, leads me to a number of do's and don'ts for those of you now wondering if any of this might really describe what Instagram could do for you. First, decide you're going to post regularly. For starters, once a week would be great. It's not overwhelming, but it will push you to take advantage of that feedback loop. If you do nothing else, do this. Second, take the time to make each image you post the best you can, but limit yourself, at least at the start, to Instagram's built-in editing tools, and limit yourself to no more than 3 minutes of editing per image. Seriously, no one worth listening to is going to pixel peep an Instagram post, and the image is simply too small. The viewer's attention span so inherently limited that to spend more time than that actually gets in the way of your growth. Remember, the objective is to create an arresting image where composition, light and shadow, subject matter, the kinds of things I spoke of earlier, are vastly more important than, say, creating an artificial catchlight in a person's eyes. You'll find this extraordinarily liberating, the time to learn Instagram editing features well worth it. Though, you will find that Instagram's square format can be limiting, especially as the one tool they omit is robust cropping. 2 quick suggestions, and it's not just one tool. Either pick up something like Snapseed, a more full-featured editing app, still super easy and cheap, or a dedicated app like Square that automatically pads either vertically or horizontally so that your complete image, aspect ratio intact, will be shown within the Instagram frame. Third, experiment. At first, you may well go nuts with filters, vignetting, or structure. That's fine. It expands your visual vocabulary, and popping an image for the small screen can work wonders. At some point, you'll probably get over it. Fourth, take the time to create a caption. I know this may strike some of you as wholly unnecessary, but if you can't articulate in words why you took the image or why your photograph speaks to you, this fact may help you better curate your work. If, on the other hand, you go through the caption process and then decide the image is excellent, but for whatever reason you don't want to include the text, well, okay, post away. Fifth, take the time to understand, use, and explore hashtags. In addition to putting hashtags in your posts, see what other people who've used the same hashtags have done too. Sixth, follow the greats and near greats or people with no followers whose images happen to speak to you. Seventh, commit but limit yourself to allocating a certain amount of time each day, you decide what that time should be, to doing all of these things. Learn, evolve your sensibilities, be inspired, and find things that haven't been done before. Eighth, commit to going back through the images you've posted at least a couple of times a year to see how you have evolved. Ninth, when you see images you like that aren't yours, like them, as I suggested earlier. If you are so moved by the image and have the time, drop a positive comment. Think about it. What is it that draws you to it? Whether you know the photographer or not. You are putting yourself out there, contributing to the common good, and you never know how that might come back to you. 10th, keep the number of accounts you follow small. Otherwise, you could easily lose track and control of the rest of your life. Lastly, if you do happen to find someone trolling you on your own account, just delete the comment, mute or block that account, and move on. Instagram lets you do that. On to some don'ts. Don't tell someone you don't like their image. That person probably isn't asking, and even if they are, being negative isn't kind or helpful. Don't post a pile of images at one time or a pile of images over the course of a day. When you put anything on Instagram, you are, in essence, inviting people to look. But in fact, you're also requesting a moment of their time. Don't overuse the privilege of having that attention. I don't need to tell you don't engage in ad hominem attacks. Don't use bots or services to try to grow your followers. Don't like a bajillion images or offer a bajillion comments in the hope that people will like you back either. Authenticity matters. Which is not to discourage you from commenting. You may find that a comment or 3 over a few weeks or months to the same fellow Instagrammer might lead to a conversation, possibly more. Now, this next one is important and different from what I've said thus far. Don't think that an image you edit directly in Instagram can then be used for a high-quality, large-scale print. It cannot. Instagram is adept at compressing an image appropriate to the form factor. tablets and smartphones, which is to say small and low res. And what looks good small may well look terrible when enlarged. When we sharpen, for example, we do so considering image size and viewing distance. Just be aware. On the other hand, don't be discouraged if you love an image and other people don't. Instagram rarely rewards nuance. It's the nature of the viewing experience. This is why, at some point in your Instagram journey, you may well switch to another editing tool outside of Instagram, especially, as I have grudgingly done, Lightroom. The reason for this is that Lightroom does not compress or scale the heck out of the image you edit to your tiny smartphone screen, and makes that image available to all of your devices at the original resolution. And it's why Instagram is not the only place for you to display your work. The interesting thing of it is, on the other hand, that as you look back at the best of your already curated images on Instagram, you may find a few that transcend the rest, worth sharing at full, glorious resolution and scale for the most discerning viewers. Heck, you may get to the point, if you're not there already, that in an utterly authentic way, you've created a sales funnel to your services if, say, you are an event photographer. Sales of your prints, say, if you're a landscape photographer. Sales of your brand new, now available for pre-order books, say, if you're a street photographer, visit www.3bmep.com/books. Inquiries for your next, Streets of New York workshop, www.3bmep.com/streets2. The perfect time, in other words, to already have in place a beautiful, multifunctional website dedicated to your craft. You know where I'm going with this, right? We actually use and have used for years Squarespace.com. Remember, save 10% of your first website or domain purchase by going to squarespace.com/Hugh and using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Just saying. Finally, don't take Instagram too seriously. Don't do it for anyone other than yourself. Don't become so caught up in it that you forget the most important person in your life is usually the one sitting a few feet away from you, patiently waiting for you to finish your post. I look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments section below.